G'day. Are you aware of the theory of survival bias? If not, check this out. Survival bias is a form of selection bias whereby you focus on those that succeed or survive and ignore those that don't. And there was a great example of this during World War II when the Allies were mapping the bullet holes in the planes that returned from missions. And they realized that there was a concentration of bullet holes on these planes in certain areas. And so, logically enough, they suggested they should be reinforcing those areas with the concentration of bullet holes because they're the areas that the enemy is targeting. But then a mathematician came along and realized what was happening here was survival bias. They were only analyzing the data from the planes that returned. They couldn't analyze the data from the planes that did not survive, obviously, because they're gone. But what he suggested was, in fact, what this concentration of bullet holes on these planes is really showing is the areas that these planes can sustain a hit. Because the planes that were hit in other areas that were not on these particular returned planes, those areas, if planes were hit in those other areas, they could not take the hit, they could not survive. And so his theory was we should be reinforcing the areas that show no bullet holes on these returned planes. Because if a plane got hit in those areas, they didn't return because the data isn't here. And survival bias is something that I think a lot of us apply every day. We apply it a lot in business. We look at those that succeed in business, but we don't necessarily analyze enough the ones that don't. We look at the actions and steps that the winners have taken and say, well, if we follow those steps, we'll be okay. If our competitors have done this and we do the same thing, then we'll be able to succeed and beat them at their game. When in fact, if you use the theory of survival bias, you should be focusing more on those that have not succeeded. Because maybe it's not necessarily the steps that these guys took to succeed, it's the steps that they didn't take. It's the things that they didn't do. So survival bias makes a lot of sense. It's in play. I think it's human nature in many ways. It's in play every day in what we do. And I think we're all guilty of it. So next time you're analyzing a competitor or analyzing a market opportunity, ask yourself, is there a bit of survivor bias in play here? Because if there is, you maybe want to focus on those that didn't survive or didn't succeed. Google it, check it out. All right, that is it for today. I do thank you for your time, and I will be back again tomorrow. See ya.